Hello and welcome to SJP Advisor Stories. In this series, we interview SJP partners and advisors to share their real-life experiences. I'm your host, G for Tit, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask an SJP partner or advisor, please feel free to comment below or reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Hello, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Kanishk Swarup, who joined the St James's Place Financial Advisor Academy back in 2016, following a successful career in equities and derivatives trading. Welcome, Kanishk. How are you today?
Very well. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited.
We're very, very happy to have you here. Now, we always start the show by asking everybody the same question. So I'm going to ask it to you. What does financial advice mean to you?
Wow. Okay. Financial advice financial advice or slash financial planning, I think means just being proactive about thinking about your money matters. I think one thing I realized before I joined this career path is that 90% of the people probably spend less than 10% of their time thinking about their own finances. And I think financial advice or financial planning is just focusing on that aspect. And it can take many shapes and forms as to what you actually do with it. But the key element being actually be focused around that subject.
That's so true. Thank you so much for answering your version of that question. That's really great to hear. So tell us a bit about your background. Before you trained to become a financial advisor, where did you grow up and how did you come to study at LSE in London?
Well, my journey started back in a small town called Jamnagar. It is based on the west coast of India. To give you a sense, there were very few English medium schools. We didn't really have that much exposure. And I basically spent the first 16 years of my life in that small town, whereby I did my initial schooling. So that's where my journey kind of started. And I was very happy in this small town, living the life and feeling like that I had achieved everything that I had to do, being on top of things. But my parents had the foresight and they realized that if I had to make something of my life and progress, I suppose, then I had to leave this place and go to a bigger city for better opportunities. So that's when we went about applying to all the bigger schools in the bigger towns of India, like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Calcutta. But unfortunately for me, I think we soon found that it was very hard to get an admission into these big schools because of where I had come from. Having come from a small town, the big schools didn't really recognize the studies and the board that I had studied under. So I struggled to get a place. And whilst we were doing this search, there was a British school offering British A levels on the east coast of India in Calcutta, where the school was pretty much like, listen, we offer the British A levels. We don't care where you've come from. If you can clear this entrance exam, then you know what, the seat is yours. So I thought that that could be my only that. To be honest, I didn't really have that many choices at that point. So I just worked extremely hard. Having done no O levels, I worked for like 3-4 months to clear this entrance exam, which I managed to do. And suddenly I was doing the British A levels, having never done the O levels, staying with some family relatives of mine in their homes to get started.
Wow. And
So
what was that initial experience like, moving away from home and your family?
yeah, I think that was a truly testing phase. I think if I had to look back on my career and my life, I think those 2 years that I spent there were the most demanding of my life because not only did I was basically studying outside of school for my O levels because A levels would not make sense without doing the O levels. So effectively in those 2 years, I did O levels and A levels. So that was an extremely demanding time, both emotionally and in every which way.
Wow. And what A levels did you actually study?
So I did maths, I did accounts, I did economics. So those were my three majors as such. And yeah, and I think whilst I was doing those A levels, especially in the second year of A levels, I found all my friends were children who were planning to apply to British universities for their undergraduate studies. And having come from a humble background, my parents didn't really have the financial resources to afford paying the overseas tuition fees and send me to the UK. But I ended up applying to the universities anyways, because luckily for me, the application was very straightforward. It didn't really ask for a lot. So I said, you know what, let's just see what happens. And then yeah, the next thing I find out that I've managed to get a conditional offer from LSE, and that's when I told my parents, and we were very excited about the option of actually coming to the UK, but couldn't really afford to come here on my own. So that's when we applied for financial aid and scholarship, and I was lucky that LSE did extend me a scholarship, which took care of my tuition fees to a large degree. And then I worked, the plan was to come here and work part time and take care of my living expenses. And yeah, I decided to come here.
Wow. And you'd already made that huge leap living away from your family before. So I guess even though you were in a different country, you'd already sort of got used to living away from family. So how was it when you first came over here?
Yeah, I think that 2 year stint really made me ready for kind of face anything, I suppose. So yeah, I think I came on a one-way ticket from India, having never even probably seen pictures of London or forget about visiting London. So it was an extremely daunting times and experience for me. And everything was so expensive. I remember like going to a coffee shop and not buying a coffee because it just, I think at the time was
Shocked.
costing like £2 and you felt like there's no way I can afford to do this. So it was very hard both financially to just kind of find my bearings and do that. So I remember in my first week at LSE, I was kind of trying to find jobs to do so that I could ease the financial strain on myself.
And what jobs did you end up doing?
I did a whole host of things. I worked part-time in some cafes. I got a job in our student hall. There used to be a kitchen. We used to serve dinners there. So I worked in the kitchen. So I was serving food to all the students. So I worked part-time there. I took up a job in the LSC library. So I did that. There was an interesting job where there was a marketing campaign by lastminute.com where the job was to shave off half your hair because they were promoting 50% off last minute deals, stand outside Victoria Station, and they were going to pay like 100 quid for the 1 days of work. And I was so tempted to do it, but because the money was so good at the time, but my parents talked me out of it. They said, "Listen, this is way too aggressive. You've not gone there to shave off all your hair in your first week of university." So yeah, I think I did all sorts of things to be honest, but
You were
not that
open to
particular one.
anything. I love that, and I love the creativity of the ideas that you had. So you successfully studied at LSE. What was your subject?
So I did maths and economics. I think both subjects are something I was always interested in from an early age. I felt let's just go with something that I'm passionate about and I'm interested in. And studying economics at LSE is like the dream course to do. So yeah.
Absolutely. So you spent your time there, you got through your qualification, and what was next? What did you want to do? Did you want to go to India? Did you want to stay in the UK? What were you thinking?
I think it was very clear that I wanted to stay and work here. And I think that became very clear very early on at LSE because I think at LSE, the focus on career is paramount. Like I remember in the very first week at LSE, we didn't go and check out where our lecture rooms are going to be, but we knew where the careers department was, and we knew that we had to make a CV, and we already knew that we had to get some work experience on our CVs to make it attractive for employers. And all the students were kind of clued into that kind of ethos. So I think it was very clear that, oh, I'm going to stay here and work here, right? Like, and it made sense financially to earn in the UK to kind of pay back to my parents all the investments that they had made. So I think that part was very clear. In terms of what I wanted to do, I didn't really have that much choices because I suppose coming from India, we had to get a work permit to stay and work in the UK. And at least 20 years back, it was mainly the law industry, the law sector, or the banking sector, or the big accountancy firms that used to be very good at giving out these work permits. So it was basically between selecting from these options for me.
Wow. And you chose the banking route?
Yeah, I think again, always been interested in the stock markets, always been interested in finance. My father and my grandfather had their own a small manufacturing unit, so these conversations were always part of our daily uh, conversations at home, etc. So yeah, I think I was fascinated by the banking world, and it seemed very glitzy and glamorous, and equally, stock market was something that interested me.
Fantastic. Now, you spent the next decade working at some of the biggest names in finance, Credit Suisse, JP Morgan, BNP, I have as businesses on your CV. So tell us about that, how that next 10 years panned out.
Yeah, super exciting, really. I think big highs and big lows, I'd say. I think started off in 2005. So first couple of years, you really saw the all the glamorous side to banking that used to exist, big celebrations, you've been thrust into this big world where there were massive trading limits. You had a lot of risks that you could take as a trader. And as a young guy joining on the graduate program, this was, you felt like you had arrived, right? Like you felt like it was the best job in the world where you were basically investing and playing with the bank's money, trying to make money for the bank. So that was very interesting. And then we got hit by the financial crisis. So that kind of really killed all the euphoria, I suppose, that used to exist. That was an extremely stressful time. I lost a lot of my colleagues. My boss got made redundant. But for me personally, it just meant more responsibility. I was given a bigger role within the organization and just grew in the ranks, really. And I think not having any sort of baggage in terms of any past perceptions to live up to, or not having responsibilities of a family or children or a mortgage, really allowed me to express myself and get out of my comfort zone during my career as a trader, which really helped me kind of go from strength to strength, I suppose.
Wow, it's so fascinating, and it's such an interesting lens to look through, because I think many people would just think about, oh, I'm an employee, etc., and maybe not think about that risk taking in quite the same way that you actually did and haven't throughout your career. So taking those measured risks, thinking about all of the things that are happening both inside and outside the workplace. And obviously that's something you still do now, and you help other people to do the same now.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and I think risk taking in not just in terms of the money that the bets that you're taking in the market, but just in terms of your career. I think one incident that strikes me is where I was visiting New York and going into our offices in New York when I was at Credit Suisse to meet my colleagues there. And I was just emailing people to say, hey, listen, I'm going to be in town. Should we get a coffee and just networking, I suppose. And then I said, okay, you know what? The CEO of the company works out of our New York office as well. So why should I not email him? I would love to get some time with him. So I dropped him an email, and then I heard nothing for the next 30 days. And then on the day that I was actually sitting in New York offices with my other colleagues, I got an email from his PA saying, can you come up to the 40th floor at 2:30? And the colleagues were like zapped because they had never met the CEO, and I had flown in for 2 days as a graduate.
That's
And then I had
fantastic.
30 minutes of his time one to one, and he was just asking me about my career, and we were just chit-chatting, and it was a very surreal experience for a graduate to do
I
that.
love that. And just as you know, I maybe people might see it as a risk, but you were like, I'm in town, like let's meet up, and
Yeah,
just
I said, what do I have to lose, right? Like,
yeah.
in worst case, he'll ignore me. In best case, I'll get to meet him.
And
So
it was the best case. That is fantastic.
yeah, I
Now
think
you
when I
said,
got back to London, my boss said, "How was your meeting with the CEO?" And I was like, "How did you know about this? I was going to come and tell you." He's like, "Well, that email went all the way from the CEO back all the way to my boss to say, who's this guy? Why does he want to meet me? Is he upset about something?" And my boss just replied, "He's just an extra eager, curious guy." So
Exactly the kind of person you wanted to meet, right? Love it.
yeah.
Amazing. Now, when we had our pre-call for this, you mentioned that you were here in the UK, and obviously most of your closest family and relatives were still in India. So often you had annual leave to take. Other people were probably going off and home to see their families, whereas you were here. So what did you spend your time doing when you had time off work?
Yeah, I mean, I had friends here, so obviously would spend time with my friends, but the idea was again to being very money conscious. We wouldn't go back to India every holiday, right? So I think for me, it was about, I think having come from a very humble background, I think I realized the value of money very early. And I also, all my experiences of working part-time, I realized how hard it is to earn money. And so I think it was in my DNA to save money from a very early age. And then I realized when I'm working that, you know what, we're paying so much in taxes. Surely there is must be something that we can do to make it slightly better and be more tax efficient, I suppose. So I used to be a bit of a geek in that sense, where I would take maybe a week of my annual holidays to just sit at home and read up about what exemptions are available to us, what allowances we can use. I didn't know anything about the financial advisor industry, so I didn't know that was an option. So it was just seeing whatever little I could be doing to make myself more tax efficient. But equally, how can I make my savings work harder? So I think the focus was very much on I've done all these savings. It wasn't much in an absolute sense, but how can I make this grow? So whether it was investing ideas, opportunities, that's what I would do. And that really started to pay off, I suppose, over the 10 years that I was in banking.
Absolutely. And people around you started to notice and ask you for advice, or how did it pan out?
Yeah, so I think it started off with my friends. I think we just started to, I mean, I was just generally interested in this topic. So I would talk about it with my friends, and then we got talking and we thought about doing things together and co-investing in things. And then at work, when we would get our bonuses, my colleagues would be like, which house to buy or which holiday to go for. And I would be talking about, and I'm going to be investing here, and I'd be putting some of my money there. So that kind of got them curious to say, hey, Kanishk, you know what? You seem to be knowing what to do. Tell us what you're doing and tell us your tips. And that kind of snowballed over the years as well. Where I think by the end of my banking career, my boss, after a bonus round, took me to a meeting room and said, Kanishk, I need 30 minutes of your time, which is, I'm going to walk you through my situation. Can you tell me what I should be doing?
Wow.
So that's when the penny dropped that, you know what? Something which is definitely not rocket science, right? Nothing that we do is complicated or complex, but I think it's just finding the interest or the time to really understand the details is not something that everybody wishes to do themselves.
Absolutely. So these are the first pennies dropping, but you didn't really know about the role of a financial advisor still at this point. So tell us a bit more about sort of background wise, where you think this sort of passion for investing came from originally.
Um, I think if I jog my memory all the way back to my childhood, I think it was my dad. I think I would give him the credit for getting me interested into the world of finance and equities. Um, he used to be passionate about it. In fact, my grandfather used to be passionate about it. He used to subscribe to all the IPOs that used to come out in the Indian stock market. And at the time, used to get these nice paper certificates with the company logo, and he would get them framed and put on the wall. So he used to be really excited about stocks himself. So I think that got passed on to my dad and then to myself. And as a child, I remember with my dad, we used to have this game where we used to have a mock trading portfolio, basically, where um, we would once a week on Sundays, I remember, look at the newspaper to see the stock prices of all the companies in the market, and I would pick companies that I understood or knew about in my portfolio. So it could be, let's say, a Cadbury's or a Coca-Cola. And my dad would pick, let's say, five or six companies that he felt he loved or he believed in. And then we would just track on a week to week basis to see how we were doing relative to each other. So it was almost like a game, but really got me interested into reading more about the company and asking questions, right? Like, why has the stock price gone down? What does that mean? So I think that's where it all kind of sparked up. And the funny thing is, we would make my mom, who was not interested in all of this, to be the index. So her allocation of her money was the benchmark index, the Sensex in India. So that was a comparison to active fund management versus passive and seeing whether we were any good at stock picking or not.
This is fantastic. I think every family should play this game. I'm going to try it with my daughter, see how interested she is. But wow, what an amazing introduction to just starting to understand purchasing stock and understanding where to read about it as well. I think that's an absolutely fantastic story. And how old do you think you were?
I think this was when I was 9 or 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it really is a sort of a very much ingrained in your upbringing, and that sort of, like you say, curiosity and passion for the topic really started to shine through when you were working full time and thinking about how to invest your own money. It's fascinating. So we've reached a crossroads then. You've had sort of 10 years success. And I guess your decisions are either sort of stay in this profession or find something else. So what were the things that were happening in your life that made you want to start thinking, what shall I do next?
Yeah, so I think over the 10 years, as I said, I think it was a great career choice initially over the first few years. It was all very exciting and being thrust with so much responsibility at an early age was something I truly enjoyed. But I think towards the end of my 10-year stint as a trader, I think things started to change. I think, first of all, the amount of regulations that came in the industry made the role less exciting. And a lot of time was spent in compliance and regulation rather than actually thinking about stocks and the market, which is the bit I was interested in. What also happened was I just felt like, having changed banks a couple of times, that I was kind of plateauing in my career and I couldn't really see where that next big move up was going to come from. And I felt at the age of 30 that I was too young in my career to plateau. Um, and whilst I was thinking all of these things, there was this itch to do something on my own and do my own thing where I could be more in control of my destiny. And some of my close friends by the time had left banking and started their own startups and ventures, which really excited me. So I was kind of at these crossroads. We wanted to plan a family, so that was another factor which was playing in. So all of those reasons, I guess, got me to reach out to my mentors and my support system, support people who were supporting me to see what else could I be doing. And I guess the focus was on finding something which I was interested in and I was passionate about, but equally leveraged all my knowledge and experience in the financial markets. So this is what I would think that the reasons why I guess was thinking about moving.
Wow. And I love that you lent into your peers, your own personal cheerleaders, your mentors that you'd worked with over the years, and just had started to have conversations with people and see what came up.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have a clue what to do, right? And my initial list had like 10 things that I could be doing. And during one of my conversations where I was just brainstorming with my ex-boss at Credit Suisse, and I was telling him all these things, and he's like, Kanishk, have you thought about becoming a financial advisor? And I'm like, oh, I didn't know what that meant or what that role would involve. And then he suggested that I go and speak to someone at St. James's Place. He is a partner at St. James's Place, and he said, he's working there. Why don't you go speak to him, see what he does, and just brainstorm with him? And that's when I came to meet him, and I attended one of his webinars. His name is Laird Ward, and during the webinar, not the webinar, it was actually a physical event. I saw him speak at this seminar, and I felt, you know what, this. I could totally see myself doing this, and the kind of appreciation he was getting from his clients, I thought would be immensely satisfying to do as a role. So it kind of all came together that yes, I think I'm meant for this.
Wow, I love that. So on your list of 10, financial advisor wasn't even on there, and then suddenly
Yeah,
from
exactly.
left
Yeah.
field, it was number one.
Yeah, completely fell in. I mean, when I reflected back, I did had, with all due respect, some other advisors pitching me when I was in banking, but I just felt that I wasn't ready for it at that point, and it never really connected the dots, I suppose. So as Steve Jobs often says, you connect the dots looking back, never looking
Yeah,
forward.
absolutely. So you found financial advice, you could really see yourself doing that job, and you really liked the idea of helping clients and how much they appreciate the support. So you found this guy, he was an SJP partner. When you'd found this as a career path, did you then think about how can I become one and where shall I become one? Did you look at other organizations?
Yeah, so I think after I spoke to the SJP partner, I think a couple of things happened, right? I think the big realization was I always valued money, but then over the years, I was always investing in proactive and disciplined about investing in and making my money, savings work hard. And that's when I realized the value of the power of compounding, right? That it is small steps taken every day, consistently over time, can have an enormous exponential impact in someone's life. So I think that happened. And then obviously all the financial planning that I was doing it for myself, I could see how much my colleagues were valuing it, right? So I realized the value of financial planning, I suppose, when my colleagues interacted with me. So I think all of this led me to get convinced very quickly that this is the path that I want to be on, and I want to help people on that journey, but hopefully in a much more impactful professional way, because before that I never had the qualifications or the license to do it properly. So that bit was very clear. And yes, I did talk to some other firms, especially coming from Credit Suisse. I could have joined Credit Suisse Private Wealth because of my previous ties with them. But I think when I explored those opportunities, I realized that going back in an employed role didn't excite me, because I think when you're in an employed role, invariably, with all due respect, in most organizations, you might have sales targets, you might have pressures, your clients could be taken away and given to someone else.
Yeah.
And those things I didn't really want to go through. So I think it was very clear that I wanted to do my own thing, and St. James's Place was the best fit to incubate my practice.
Wow. And I love that you already had some ex-colleagues who were doing startup, and it was something in the back of your mind to have your own business.
Yes.
And then suddenly, wow, I can have my own business in the finance sector, which was super appealing for you. So SJP in 2016 had been running the academy for some 4 years, so reasonably established program at that point. So what was it like when you came to engage with the people at SJP? What was the onboarding process or interview process like?
Yeah, so I think once it was clear to me that I want to start my own practice and I guess work within the St. James's Place network, um, I reached out, and I think the academy is, I think it sounds like a place where you just come and study, but I think it was very, very collaborative. I think, again, the interview process wasn't really an interview. It was more to see whether there's a fit.
Yeah.
I guess it was a fit where St. James's Place wanted to know whether I was actually serious about this profession and whether I actually had the skills that they feel would make me a great advisor. And equally, they wanted to see if I really wanted to do this, because I think starting your own practice sounds very glamorous on the outside, that you're your own boss and you can control where you spend your time. But it is, as we know, an enormous amount of work, and it's
Yeah.
all consuming. And it was that vetting process, right? I think it was just testing that whether I had a business plan, how would I go about getting clients, what would my practice look like. So I think it was those conversations which happened during the initial phases, just to establish whether this is a good fit.
Wow. And so obviously it was a good fit because the rest is history. You are with us, been here with us since 2016. So once inside the academy, there are qualifications to pass in order to be a regulated and registered financial advisor here. Now you've obviously came with a lot of financial knowledge and information. So how did you personally find those exams?
Yeah, so I think the exams took a while. So I think it took close to 12 months to clear those exams and to get fully qualified. I think the technical knowledge, I had a lot of investment knowledge, so that part was easy,
Yeah.
but I probably did not quite appreciate the breadth of tax planning and products that are available to us as advisors. So that was an eye-opening exercise and something that I had to obviously spend a lot of time to understand and learn. And this again gets it's a misconception. Like a lot of people feel like, they know about an ISA or a pension in some shape or form, and they feel like they know about the taxes. There's so much more to it. There's so much more planning that we can do, which I also appreciated and obviously took time to learn all of those things. But the most important thing which I learned in the academy as such was the soft skills side of things. It's all well and good to have all the knowledge, but you're dealing with people with different backgrounds, different personal biases, different level of knowledge, different expectations, different risk appetite, and just learning to figure out and adapt how to help them in the best possible way rather than just being prescriptive, but something that sticks and they truly believe in was something that I had to learn. I'm still learning, but that was the big part of the learning was in the academy.
Wow, I love that. You're absolutely right. I think having a qualification on, a stamp of approval on a piece of paper is one thing, but then being a really good financial advisor and a really great person with other people, really putting yourself in their shoes and giving them good advice. There are soft skills involved in that, aren't there? And you say you're always, we're all always learning. And I love the fact that you still say that you're learning today. So what was it like in terms of the program itself? Were you in a cohort? Did you have development managers? What did that look and feel like for you?
Yes, I think on a day-to-day basis, we were in a group of about 20. So 20 other fellow people who were either changing careers or embarking on this journey to become a financial advisor. We had day-to-day training on different concepts of financial planning. It could be tax, it could be different products. We had a business manager who was supporting us with our business plan to say that, you know what, you're going to get your qualification in 6 months' time, and then what do you do on day one, right?
Yeah.
I think having that support was, I mean, I'm truly grateful for it. I think it was very well thought out, the academy structure, and there are so many things to think about in your practice or in your business that having that helping hand available to tell you that, okay, this is coming up next, this is what you're going to struggle with, is super valuable because it's a very lonely role, right? I think being your own boss and starting out from a team of one, it
Yeah.
can be extremely lonely. So having that cohort of people which are all going through the same journey and having the support system in place made sure that we were on track.
Wow. And do you still in contact with any of those 20 people?
Yeah, so we are in touch with, I mean, I'm in touch with some of them. We meet up often. We still brainstorm ideas. In fact, there's a one particular colleague of mine who we do regularly do joint cases with because he has specialized in a very niche area of financial planning on IHT and long-term care. My experience is very much on the investment side of things, and I work with a lot of very busy working professionals who have like young families. So wherever there's a case where it involves his expertise, then we just collaborate and work together, which
Wow.
again is only possible when you're part of this wider community.
Amazing. Now, you've mentioned that you did have this desire to have your own business, and that was a big part of why you came to SJP. So I think sometimes for those outside of SJP, understanding the business model can be a little bit difficult. So one of the things that I typically say on an event is there's 2,000 employees, but none of them give financial advice. The advice is given through the businesses in the partnership, of which you are one of. And what that means is all those businesses are called their own independent business name. So what did you decide to call your business and why?
So we named our practice Compound Wealth Planning a couple of years back, and I think it stemmed from the idea that I think compounding. If I had to pick one word that is the core of all financial planning and financial advice and financial coaching, is compounding. It's the idea of taking small steps day in, day out, being proactive. Any single step on its own is not going to move the needle, but doing it consistently day in and day out, you're going to see exponential impact, whether it is investing or any other field for that matter.
Wow. And I think I can see your company logo on the shelf there behind you. Is that the symbol behind you? And
Yes,
how did you go?
that's our logo. That's our practice.
That's your brand. I love it. And so how did you come about building your brand? Did you get help from SJP for that?
Yeah, so again, I think you mentioned that about how many employees are there within SJP, but they don't actually work with clients. I think the best way to explain that would be having a complete startup completely on your own is, let's say, one end of the spectrum. Being an employee in a business is the other end of the spectrum. And this is like bang in the middle, where you have your own practice, but you have all the benefits of a large organization supporting you in your career. So we have access, as you know, to marketing teams, there is branding teams, there is technical help available for different areas of planning, there is regulation, there's compliance teams, there's IT teams. So I think all of these teams being in place frees up my time completely to be with my clients and understanding their needs when everything else is kind of outsourced and delegated. So coming back to your point about branding, yes, I took some help from the SJP's branding team and we worked on putting it together. And
Your
yeah,
idea.
feel very passionate about it now.
Fantastic. So yeah, your idea and then help to make that come to life and have a brand and a logo. That's fantastic. Now you mentioned it's easier to join the dots when you're looking back. So let's look back at your previous career and your current career. What would you say are some of the transferable skills that you've brought with you that you may not have noticed at the time that were going to be valuable?
I think the investment knowledge and experience, I think, is a big one. I think I come across a lot of peers and advisors where yes, you can read about things as much as possible, but actually having skin in the game is there is no substitute for it. And I think me having got so much of experience in investing and still continuing to invest proactively with my own savings on a day-to-day basis allows me to really have a skin in the game and only recommend things to my clients which I am personally invested in myself. And I think that truly stands out to me as one thing. And the other thing is just the professionalism and the focus on technology, I think is again a standout. I think working with JP Morgan, which is the leading investment bank in the world, there was a huge focus on technology and using software and platforms to make us more efficient, but also to enhance the experience for our clients. So that is what we at Compound Wealth Planning are trying to do, is to use as much insights and AI and software to give better insights to our clients and help them on that journey.
Fantastic. I love that. And I love the word professionalism. I've always worked within the financial services profession, and I feel really lucky because there are such high standards of professionalism. So I love that. So you brought that with you. That is brilliant. So tell us then, you started your own business back in 2016, 17. I guess the hardest part of anybody going on this career transition to start their own business here at SJP is the fear of, how do I find my first clients? So what was that part of the journey like for you?
I think I think that was definitely the hardest part. I remember, I think in my first few months, I would question the decision of going down this road every week or maybe every couple of days, and then it went down to maybe once a month, and then now I don't question it, and I'm grateful that I made that leap. So I think that concern is very real. But I think what you find is this again was taught to me during the academy. It's about activity, right? I think the idea was that if you're focused and if you're busy, then things will fall into place. And I think I remember one of my mentors advising me that Kanishk, you need to do 20 meetings a week, 2 meetings a day. You do that, or no, not 20, let's say 10 meetings a week. So you 2 meetings a day. And if you do that consistently, then you will get business. There will be people for whom you will be the right fit for, and they will give you business. So yeah, I think I reached out to all my friends and all my family, and I said, "Hey, listen, can we grab a coffee? This is what I'm doing now. Maybe there's something I might be able to help you with." And yeah, I mean, I was very lucky that few of my very close friends trusted me implicitly and just opened the doors to trust me and give me their business for something for which I think I will forever be grateful for. Because I think in those early days, you need that confidence, you need every bit of support, and they'll never be forgotten, and they know that. So I think that's how I kind of got started. But of course, I also did a lot of networking. I joined BNI. I just met people for coffees, right? And tried to understand what they were doing on their finances and see how I could add value. And slowly that momentum built up over the months and yeah, and touch wood, that momentum continues to build up.
Wow. And so there's a couple of things there in your answers. So first of all, I'm going to go back to the question around the onboarding process where, it was almost stress testing your resilience. And then actually you came to really put that into play. So there were times when you were thinking, why have I chosen this? And then you ask yourself that question less and less and less, and now not at all. So I think that resilience is really important, and being really super focused on what you want your long-term objective to be, which is having your own business, etc., and being really connected to your why. I think that's fantastic. And so you mentioned earlier the types of clients that you look after most frequently are young families, time poor.
Yeah. So I mean, people who are in a similar bracket to me, right? Like I've got two kids myself. My daughter is 7, my son is 4. Extremely busy. My wife's in a full-time role as well, so extremely time poor. But equally, the realization is there that we can't ignore our finances. So by default, I think a lot of my network is similar people around us, and that's where I am specializing now.
I love it. And how do you help them? What kind of things do you help them with?
So I think what I would say is the primary concern most of my clients have is the fact that about half of their income is being eaten away in tax. So I think that's going even before the money hits their account is gone. And then whatever they have saved up is being eaten away with the high inflation that we face. So you're getting hit on every side, right? Getting hit both ways. And I think it's about the biggest thing that my clients would want to plan for is getting on the property ladder. Then the big one is how can I make sure that my kids have an education fund that takes care of all their private school fees, their university fees, their maybe a deposit towards their first property. I want to make sure that that is there and ring fenced.
Wow.
And then it's about ultimately how can I become financially free, which is the way I define that concept is at which point can I stop being dependent on my day job,
Yeah.
still be able to maintain my lifestyle through the income I might be earning from my savings and investments. So those are the big areas that I would basically work with my clients on.
And you mentioned to me earlier that timing wise is critical that people do that now. Otherwise, their savings can be eroded.
Yeah, I think that's the big missions that we are on, right? I think it's the realization that this used to be at least 10 years back a nice to have. Having a financial advisor was a nice to have, because people were saving enough, it was fine. They didn't really have to do as much. But now with the kind of tax increases we are seeing, whether it is VAT, there's a budget coming up at the end of October, where again taxes are meant to go up. Um, and the inflation continues to be very high for people who are in a similar bracket to me, whether it is living expenses, travel, etc. So this has become critical. This has become no longer, people are not being able to run any faster to earn any more. Like people are already running at full steam to earn
Yeah.
as much as they can. The only other lever that they have left is their finances and optimizing that. And I think we are on a mission to try to help as many people as possible, whether it is through directly working with them or whether it is through the insights that I regularly share on LinkedIn. And again, we have plans of trying to do webinars and events to just help as many people as we can.
I love the simplicity in your language, and I'm sure that's how you help people. It's taking something that feels quite overwhelming and just putting it very simply, like you have another lever that you can pull. Let's make sure that we optimize this for you, which will give you freedom in the future. I love the simplicity in the language. That's great. So now you're 8 years into your financial advice career, if you include your training. What do you enjoy most about the role and also running your own business?
I think by far it is the interactions with the clients. It's just spending time with my clients. That's what we do, right? That's what I do. What I tell my clients is I want to become that one person who takes responsibility of your finances, period. And that could mean many things for different people, right? For some clients, it could just mean I'm happy to do everything myself, but I just need another pair of eyes to vet the decisions that I'm making or to double check some ideas. For some, it could be arranging an insurance because they have young children. For some, it could be mortgage. For some, it could be investments. So there could be a whole host of things. But the idea is that if I'm working with you, I want you to know that you can reach out to me with any questions regarding your finances, and either I'll be able to help you directly or I'll be able to put you in touch with the right people to take care of it. And I think that level of relationship that gets deeper and deeper with each passing year is the best part.
And that's fantastic. And as you say, it's giving people that one trusted source, that one trusted place for everything financial. And that must give them a huge peace of mind.
100%. I think money is such a thing that it affects every aspect of your life, right? Whether it's relationship, career, your hobbies, your passions, your desires. And if to be a good financial advisor, when that trust develops, you get to know somebody so closely and so intimately that the relationship is at a very deep level. And I think that then allows me to really be honest with my clients and tell them where I feel they might be missing some things.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why it's a great partnership. It's not just something that I'm doing for them. They are trusting in me by opening up. And obviously I'm trusting in them that there's going to be hopefully a lifelong relationship with my clients.
And that's what I like about financial advice. It really is those building long-term relationships, being that trusted person for the first person that you met, but then you're looking after a household or a family, making sure that everybody's looked after in that family. And it's a really rewarding profession, isn't it?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you.
And so you got to where you are. So share with us a bit about how your business has grown over the last 8 years and also what you're most looking forward to in the future.
Yeah, so Touchwood, the business has grown organically over the years. We're growing at 30% plus year on year over the last 7, 8 years now. We've now worked with about 200 households. Is
Wow.
what we work with 200 families. In terms of number of clients, we have north of 300 clients that we are responsible for. And the team has expanded obviously to support my clients. So we've got 3 advisors, including myself. We've got one advisor who is solely focused on property and mortgage advice. We've got another one who specializes more with the younger generation and helping them on the property ladder, etc. And we've got a support team of 5 or 6 people to support everything that we need to do for our clients. So yeah, the idea is to keep the level of professionalism, make sure that they never feel that they are not being looked after, but equally try to see how we can help and grow and help as many people as possible. So I guess in terms of aspirations, the idea is to again keep growing. And the idea is that I wake up every day feeling that we are just scratching the surface in terms of what we can do for our clients. There is so much more that I would like to do for them. So I think we're just trying to see how far we can go, really.
I love that. And just that willingness to want to provide more and really add value to people's lives really does shine through. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey from childhood really to today. It's been a really, really wonderful story to be a part of. So how can people find you if they want to get in touch? Where can they find you?
Oh, very easy. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So on LinkedIn, if you are, so you can reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can email me or call me. My details are on my website. So yeah, through any of those channels, I would be delighted to speak to any of you and yeah, see how I might be able to help.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for being on SJP Advisor Stories, and we'll see you soon.
Lovely. Thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed it.